Grandmaster Nightfalls are now available in Episode Heresy, and Hypernet Current is the first weekly featured GM. The newly reintroduced Adept Palindrome is up for grabs, returning as an arc weapon instead of Void, coming with some godly new perk combinations that immediately make it one of the best PvE hand cannons in the game. Today we'll be covering why this weapon is so good, and how you can easily farm for Palindrome in 15 minutes or less. If you enjoyed today's video, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. Now let's get into it. So what makes the updated Palindrome so good? Well, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the new bolt charge mechanics and arc aspects at this point, and Pally takes advantage of this new meta with several new perk combinations. First up in column 3, we have Explosive Payload, which has always been a top tier perk in PvE, commonly found on other hand cannons like Midnight Coup, Fatebringer, and Zhouli's Bane. We also have a brand new perk by the name of Recycled Energy that grants ability energy to your least charged ability when reloading after a kill. In column 4, we have several extremely strong damage perks, including Magnificent Howl, Desperate Measures, the newly buffed Master of Arms, and my personal perk of choice in Rolling Storm. This perk allows you to build bolt charge freely when defeating enemy targets, and even works on non-arc subclasses. I'll personally be chasing Explosive Payload and Rolling Storm, but I'm curious to hear about which roles you guys will be chasing down in the comments below. Now let's talk about the most efficient way to farm this. Hypernet Current isn't a particularly difficult Grandmaster, but the boss fights in the Nightfall can take a while and be somewhat annoying at times when you're not optimized, which is what this video will aim to help you do. We won't be going over every aspect of the GM today, as it's been around for several years now, but we will be covering how you can significantly speed up your farming. The weekly Nightfall surges are Arc and Void, making Queensbreaker and Le Monarch two outstanding picks here. Pairing 2 Queensbreakers or Le Monarchs with Divinity, or even just running 3 Le Monarchs for that matter, absolutely destroys this Nightfall. Queensbreaker doubles down for Unstop, while Le Monarch doubles down as Overload, making either a fantastic choice. You can also pair Le Monarch with a legendary linear fusion rifle to cover Unstop and give you high damage output against the final boss. As for my recommended team comp, you'll want 1 Well of Radiance Warlock for survivability in the boss encounters, and if you do end up running Divinity, which I highly recommend, it makes the Tormentor encounter unbelievably easy, and allows your div user to run a machine gun for keeping the Axion darts under control in the final boss room, which in my opinion are the 2 most annoying parts of this Grandmaster. I also recommend at least 1 Storm's Keep Arc Titan with Heart of Inmost Light for constant uptime on bolt charge, which is absolutely busted when paired with damage over time weapons like Le Monarch. The last member of your fire team can flex freely to any class of their choice, with Geomag Warlock, Tether Hunter, and a second Arc Titan being the best in slot picks here. And if you guys need some help with builds, be sure to check out my last video linked down in the description below. The last piece of the setup are the artifact mods you should be looking out for, with Volatile Marksman and Maligned Harvest significantly improving the potency of Le Monarch, while Particle Reconstruction benefits Queensbreaker and your legendary linear fusions. Defibrillating Blast is absolutely insane in GMs, as it grants max bolt charge each time you stun a champion, and heals you while jolting enemies in the process. In terms of strategies, there are 3 main tips that will speed up your farming. Number 1, when you reach the Tormentor encounter, clear the entire arena. This will make the Tormentor spawn in, at which point you can utilize this high ground on the right hand side to get a safe angle on the boss. It's worth noting that enemies aren't coded to jump up to this high ground during this phase, which means you can throw down a well and focus on just 2 priority targets. Start by breaking the Tormentor's shoulders with your linear fusion, which is crucial before applying Divinity, as this will limit your damage. Once broken, you can now apply Divinity for an easy crit bubble on a boss that tends to move around a lot and can be extremely annoying to hit without a div bubble applied to it. It's also worth noting that you actually want to keep the first Unstop alive until the boss reaches the 1/3 health gate, at which point the second set of drop pods will appear. By keeping this champion alive, it actually prevents the spawn of the second unstop, which makes this encounter easier and doesn't impact your platinum rewards, as the champion never actually spawns in. Once dead, shift your focus back to the Tormentor and kill it to despawn the rest of the enemies. And just like that, we've only had to kill 2 enemies and are moving on to the next encounter. Tip number 2. When you reach the Blight room, clear from afar and utilize the Skull and Bolt Charge to quickly destroy the Blights. Once all of them have been cleared, at least one skull will remain on the ground that you can use to take up the lift and destroy the Blight that makes the Sparrow section significantly more difficult. Destroying this Blight gets rid of all of them, making it significantly easier. Just make sure you don't walk too far forward when using it, or the game will despawn it out of your hands. You'll need at least one person to complete the full Sparrow section to progress the checkpoints in this Nightfall, which is why despawning the Blights is so important. If you don't have someone do this, it will look like the checkpoints are advancing, but will actually soft-lock the strike when you push forward. So have one person complete it, while the rest of your team can actually just use a skimmer to skip to the end of the racetrack. The third and final tip is all about final boss room positioning and when to use your supers. You're going to start by positioning yourself here, looking outwards towards the boss arena for the initial damage phase. An unstoppable champion will spawn with a group of adds on your close right, and you'll want to save your Well of Radiance for this phase to survive the boss attacks while you deal with them. Once dead, shift your focus to the boss and use either Le Monarch or your linear for damage. T-Crash also chunks this boss, and if you're having trouble getting angles on the boss's crit spot, you can still proc Bolt Charge off the top of its head and tail. When the boss hits the 2/3 health gate, Blights will spawn around the arena, at which point you'll want to jump up to this high ground and use the skulls to take them out from here. Leave a couple Blights up until your team is ready, as killing the final few Blights will teleport the boss directly to where we were just damaging from, which can definitely catch you off guard. You'll want to rotate to the far side of the arena, opposite of where we just were, giving you plenty of space to kill the Overload champion that spawns, while your div user manages the Axion darts with their machine gun. When the boss hits the 1/3 health gate, it will teleport directly behind you again, so you'll want to rotate back towards where we initially did damage from. You can then jump up to this left platform and use this high ground for cover from the adds while you take out the Blights in the sky. Once clear, drop a well on this high ground and eliminate the final unstop that spawns underneath you. It is at this point that you can kill the boss, allowing you to farm Palindrome in 15 minutes or less. If you enjoyed today's video, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. And I'll be running GM helps all week long over at twitch.tv/above, so make sure to swing by the stream and hang out with us while you snag some sweet loot. Anyways, that's it from me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace!